Hello guys, welcome to the video lecture on Introduction to Accounting. So our topic in today's video is about cash book. Now what is a cash book? A cash book is generally defined as a journalized ledger, which means to say it's a ledger account which comprises of cash, bank and discount. Normally, a cash book relates to only recording of cash transactions. Now it has two important sides. One is a debit side and the credit side. The debit side is what is termed as the receipt side and the credit side is the payment side. And a cash book is basically a substitute of the cash ledger account. Now, when we classified cash book, it can be classified in three broad heads: a single column cash book, a double column cash book, and a triple column cash book. A single column cash book means basically it's a substitute to the cash ledger account. A double column cash book might comprises of the cash ledger as well as the bank ledger, or it might be the cash and the discount ledger. And a triple column cash book comprises of cash, bank and discount ledger. Now why it is termed as a generalized ledger? It is termed as a generalized ledger because we will be posting straightaway the transactions in a ledger format which is a summation of cash, bank and discount. Let's understand the format. So if you check the format, you can find that there are two sides. One is a debit side and the credit side. And each side you have three columns: cash, bank and discount, being an example from a triple column cash book. So cash, bank and discount on the debit side, a cash, bank and discount on the credit side. Now it's basically a summation of a cash ledger account which has a debit and a credit. Similarly, a bank ledger account and a discount ledger account all clubbed together and forms a triple column cash book comprising of cash, bank and discount columns. And as said before, the debit side refers to any kind of receipts which the company is getting will be recorded on the debit side. Any kind of payments which the company is making required to be recorded on the credit side. Now before we go into an example of how entries to be done in a cash book, let's understand some specific journal entries relating to cash book. These are said to be some special entries which are specific to cash book. Let's take the first example. So if a check received from the party in one day and deposited the same check on the other day, under this case, we have to pass two journal entries. Now if you remember, if the check received from a party and has been deposited, we normally have passed an entry bank account debit to name of the party or the debtor. But here in cash book, what we do, we break up this particular transaction into two different parts. The first part is when the check is received. So when the check is received, we pass the entry cash account debit to debtor's account. And once this check is deposited in bank, then we pass an entry bank account debit to cash account. Kindly note that if the check is received on one date and the check has been deposited on another day, then only this particular format has to be done. That is, the day on which you are going to receive the check but haven't deposited, you have to pass on the entry cash account debit to debtors. And the day you are depositing the check, the journal entry will be bank account debit to cash. And you can see ultimately the main entry stands, which is bank account debit to debtors. But we will not pass bank account debit to debtors. We will pass it into two different ways, by which when the check is received, we will pass one journal entry, and when the check is deposited on the another day, we will pass a separate journal entry. Point number two is when you have received a check and has deposited the check on the same day. With reference to our previous knowledge, it will be bank account debit to debtor's account. So there is no problem with respect to if you are receiving the check and depositing the check on the same day to the bank account. The change happens only when you are receiving the check on one day and depositing the check on another day. The next most important concept is what is a contra entry. Now when both cash and bank related transaction takes place in one journal, then such kind of entry is said to be a contra entry, and it is denoted by C in the cash book. And we mentioned this C in the ledger folio column. Now what I mean? When both cash and bank related transaction takes place in one journal. So if you have deposited cash into bank, we pass a journal entry bank account debit to cash, which means to say both bank and cash are there present in that particular transaction. It's an example of a contra entry. Similarly, if I have withdrawn cash from bank, then I write cash account debit to bank. That is the journal which we pass. Again, I say cash and bank to be there. Now, why we say it's a contra entry? Because if you remember, the format of a cash book, we said that we had cash, bank and discount columns on both debit and the credit side. So therefore, this particular entry, be it cash to bank or bank to cash, will be recorded on both sides of the same cash book. We will just explain this with respect to an example. So we have been asked to prepare a triple column cash book in the books of SK Eduinfo for the month of March 2020, and the following transactions has been given. So since it's a triple column cash book, so we have drawn the format in the books of SK Eduinfo. It's a cash book triple column having cash, bank and discount on both debit and the credit side. So on 1st of March, opening cash balance is rupees 50,000 and bank balance is rupees 75,000. As you are aware of, since we have done trial balance, cash as well as bank are assets, and any kind of asset will be debit balance. So we started with, on 1st of March 2020, on the debit side, two balance BD, 50,000 in the cash column and 75,000 in the bank column. On 5th of March, purchase machinery for rupees 25,000 by check. The journal entry is machinery account debit to bank account. Therefore, machinery will be recorded in bank ledger. So since we are doing cash book, we will be moving to the credit side of the cash book because we have a bank credit on the credit side of the cash book. So on 5th of March 2020, by machinery account, and in the bank column, since it's via check, we have written 25,000. On 10th of March, paid telephone bill of rupees 2,500 by cash. The journal entry is telephone account debit to cash. Similarly, in the cash column, we'll write by telephone account, and in the cash column we write 2,500. On 15th of March, cash withdrawn from bank rupees 5,000. So if you have withdrawn cash from bank, it will be cash account debit to bank, and here comes the example of a contra entry. So if it is cash account debit to bank, then bank account will move to cash ledger debit side and cash will move into bank ledger credit side. So since bank is going to move to cash ledger debit side, on the debit side we have written to bank account 5,000 in the cash column, and since cash will move into bank ledger credit side, similarly on the credit side we have written by cash account, and in the bank column we have written 5,000. And since we said that the existence of both cash and bank account in the journal means a contra entry in a cash book, so we have mentioned it C, mentioning the fact that it's a contra entry, and we have mentioned the C in the ledger folio column. On 20th of March, received a check from Peter rupees 10,000. Now we require to understand, we have received a check, but have we deposited the check on the same date? Or else Peter's check has been deposited in the bank on some other date. If I check, 25th of March, Peter's check was deposited in bank, which concludes the fact that on 20th March, we have just received the check. So as per point 1 of the special entry which we have discussed, we have received a check from Peter rupees 10,000. The journal entry will be cash account debit to Peter. So on the debit side of cash book, we have written to Peter account, and in the cash column, we have written 10,000. On 24th of March, Ashok settled his account by paying rupees 15,000 in cash in full settlement of his account of rupees 16,000. That means Ashok has paid a certain amount of money on 24th of March. So it will be cash account debit 15,000, discount allowed account debit 1,000 to Ashok account 16,000. So Ashok account will move to cash book debit side. In the cash column we will write 15,000, and in the discount column we will write 1,000. On 25th of March, Peter's check which we have received on 20th of March has been deposited in bank, and we said the journal entry will be a contra entry where when we are depositing it, it will be bank account debit to cash account. Similarly, in the debit side, we have written to cash account, and in the bank column we have written 10,000. Similarly, bank will move into cash ledger on the credit side by writing by bank accounts. In the cash column, we have written 10,000 on the credit side, and we have identified the same as a contra entry. Let's move on to 28th March transaction. On 28th March, cash deposited into bank rupees 7,000. So when cash has been deposited in bank, the journal entry will be bank account debit to cash. So again, it's a contra entry. So cash moves into the bank ledger account debit side, 7,000 rupees. Similarly, bank will move to cash ledger account credit side, 7,000. On 30th of March, received a check from Mr. X rupees 20,000 and deposited into bank. So it's clearly mentioned that you have received a check and the same check has been deposited in the bank on the same date, 30th of March. Therefore, the journal entry will be bank account debit to Mr. X account. So to make X account goes onto the debit side of the cash book, and the amount of rupees 20,000 mentioned in the bank column. On 31st of March, settled Mr. Y's account by paying rupees 9,500 by cash in full settlement of his account of rupees 10,000. So we have paid Mr. Y, so Y account debit 10,000, to cash 9,500, to discount 500. Similarly, Y will be recorded on the credit side in the cash book, and on the credit side in the cash column we will write 9,500 and 500 in the discount column, because the journal entry was Y account debit to cash to discount. So Y has been recorded in cash ledger's credit side, discount ledger credit side. Therefore, we have completed recording all the transaction in the cash book as given in the problem. Now we require to close the cash book. So we first take into consideration the cash ledger account, and we see that the total of the debit side is 80,000, and we find a balance of rupees 51,000 on the credit side. And on the closing date, that is on 31st of March 2020, we write by balance CD, 51,000 is the balance amount on the credit side in the cash column. Similarly, we also require to close the bank ledger account. Now the debit side in the bank ledger account, the total is coming 1,12,000. We write the same total on the credit side, and we are getting a balance of rupees 82,000. So on the same date, on 31st of March 2020, by balance CD, we do not need to write it again since we already have passed the balance entry with respect to cash ledger. So in the bank column, we have written 82,000. Now there is no need to draw a balance with respect to discount. We just require to make the total of discount column. A discount of rupees 1,000 on the debit side refers to discount allowed, and a discount of rupees 500 on the credit side refers to discount received. And we have drawn the balance to the next date of the next month, that is on 1st of April 2020, to balance BD 51,000 and 82,000. I hope you have understood how posting has to be done in a triple column cash book. Till then, thank you. Have a nice